it is a very exciting time to be able to move on to our keynote presentation here today, which will be a conversation between Chicago City Treasurer Melissa Conyears-Ervin and Operation Hope founder, chairman, and CEO John Hope Bryant. We've already had a phenomenal morning with an introduction from the treasurer and then 3 separate master classes on credit building, on wealth building through home ownership, and on the financial planning of small business. We've had representation from US Bank, from Fifth Third Bank, from realtors in the community, from small business owners in the community, as well as all of our many exhibitors who you can go visit through the Whova app and through the homepage of the Chicago Financial Empowerment Summit. But this is what you are not going to want to miss. So without any further delay or any further ado, I will turn it over to our city treasurer, Melissa Conyears-Ervin, to get this kicked off.
Thank you so much, Jason. Good afternoon, everyone. Like Jason, I am very excited as well. I have been able to jump in to a few of the courses myself, and I was just overwhelmed with the amount of information received. I really hope that everyone has had a great day thus far and feel the same way. Hopefully, as Jason mentioned, you had a chance to learn about credit building, small business financial planning, and how to build wealth through home ownership. And this afternoon still holds classes, more classes on investing in the stock market, and 2 classes for our youth, one on resources and one on navigating student loans and college financing. So much information today, jam-packed, awesome schedule. But first, we have the honor to be joined by Mr. John Hope Bryant, who is the founder, chairman, and CEO of Operation Hope, who is our partner on today and just a great partner in making this great day possible. Now, Mr. Bryant is an entrepreneur, author, and philanthropist, and he is certainly passionate and believes in power of financial inclusion and financial dignity. He is also the chairman and CEO of Bryant Group Ventures and founder and principal of the Promise Homes Company, which is the largest minority-controlled owner of single-family rental homes in the US. Wow, big deal. He was named as one of the Times Magazine's 50 leaders for the future. He has served as an advisor to the last three sitting US presidents from both political parties, and he has received hundreds of awards for his work, including Oprah Winfrey's Use Your Life Award, who is my BFF, but she doesn't know it yet, and the John Sherman Award for Excellence in Financial Education from US Treasury. I can go on and on about Mr. Bryant, but the headline today is that he is here with us. And so I could not be more excited to hear from him. You are going to love him. And I could not be more excited to finally make the announcement that I've been teasing about all morning. It is my great honor to announce that the Chicago City Treasurer's Office is partnering with Operation Hope Beyond Today, Beyond the Summit, with the Building Wealth for Tomorrow initiative, a credit and money management program for all Chicagoans to take control of their finances. Yay! Very big deal to be announcing this partnership between Chicago City Treasurer's Office and Operation Hope. All Chicagoans will have access to Hope coaches who will help them develop a positive money mindset, grow a healthy savings account, improve their credit scores, and eliminate debt. They'll provide comprehensive coaching, workshops, and a community that will serve as a support system in reaching your financial goals. And best of all, just like the summit today, the program, the partnership will be free to all Chicagoans. So this is truly an exciting program that has the power to transform lives, which is really the goal that I had for today's summit. So think of it like having the kind of learning you've experienced today within this summit available to you all the time and personalized to your needs. So I don't want to take another moment away from our distinguished keynote speaker who can tell us more about the program and definitely give us the kind of inspiration that we all need, especially in a time such as this. So please help me welcome Mr. John Hope Bryant.
Honored to be with you. You guys are really lucky to have this young lady as your city treasurer. She's created a bit of history today. I'm not sure she is aware of it, but it's history on several fronts. One, we've never done a Hope Inside location. We have 157 locations. I guess technically this will be 158 in 26 states that are serving you. And I often call it the Starbucks of financial inclusion. It just so happens that one of your Chicago natives, our friend Melody Hobson, was just announced yesterday, I think, as the chair for Starbucks, the chair of the board for Starbucks. I believe she's the only African-American to be chair of a Fortune 500 board of directors, a Fortune 500 company. It's a big, big deal. And in Chicago, there's history that happened, but let me step back from that for a minute. So out of all of our Hope Inside partnerships, we partnered with Governor of Rhode Island. We partnered with mayors, Mayor of Memphis, and others. We partnered with police departments here in Atlanta, the city of Atlanta. We partnered with school districts, the Atlanta School District, the Denver School District, to put Hope Insides in place. This is the first time that we partnered, let me make sure I get this right. Yes, with the city treasurer. We have, actually, it might be the second. I'm trying to think about this. Jason will correct me. It may be St. Louis city treasurer. But this is unique in the focus that she has. It's certainly the first big city we've ever done this in. This holistic focus that she just articulated is a big deal. But the history here, and I just spoke to Ambassador Andrew Young last night, who was touched by this because he lived for a time in your city. He was there with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And this was Dr. King's last movement about poverty, about economic uplift. He lived there in a housing tenement on the South Side, where many of my family members still live. The building that he lived in has been redeveloped there, and there's a marker if you're interested in where he resided when he was there. Andrew Young, Ambassador Andrew Young now, lived there with him for a time. They're trying to bring attention to poverty and solutions around poverty eradication. Before and after that, Jesse Jackson also had initiatives there, Operation Breadbasket, et cetera. But Dr. King put his life literally on the line, was hit with bricks, he felt more threatened by what happened in Chicago than what happened to him in the Deep South. And to have that storm convert into this rainbow. You cannot have a rainbow without a storm first. It's actually a scientific fact. And I think that coincidence is also God's way of staying anonymous. That's another Ambassador Andrew Young quote. Isn't it ironic? Isn't it coincidental that the city treasurer has a dress on today that literally is a live rainbow? We didn't talk about this. This is something larger and more important than us working here. I think that Dr. King would be pleased, quite proud to see somebody who's a public office holder in charge of the money for the city, doing something like this for the people of the city, to uplift them, to give them a private banker, to give the poor and the working class a private banker, to help them with their lives, folks with too much month at the end of their money, folks who are struggling from paycheck to paycheck. And I'm not talking about just poor people, whatever that means. I'm talking about working middle-class people who've got too much month at the end of their money. 70% of this country is living from paycheck to paycheck, 70. So whether you're white, black, red, brown, or yellow, you want to see some more green. One could argue that the political environment we find ourselves in today, which is quite fractured, is a result of the wealth and income inequality and the class disconnects. The ladder of aspiration seems to be broken in America. And if that's the case, it explains the last 15 years of an increasingly fractious political debate where we can't seem to agree on anything rational. One could argue that my poor white friends might have actually rioted, in quotation marks, at the ballot box 4 years ago, 4+ years ago now, in the way that they understand, and that some of my frustrated young black and brown people protested and rioted, and I'm not endorsing rioting, in the streets, because that's maybe the voice that they understand. None of that's productive. None of that's going to lead to anything positive. You don't build any wealth by blaming your problems on your neighbor. You can't pay your bills by being angry at someone else. Anger is not a strategy, and frustration is not a business plan. We have got to have a vision for our lives and get that vision into action. Dr. Dorothy Height, one of my mentors, God rest her soul, said she loved me because I was a dreamer with a shovel in my hand. I think that your city treasurer is a dreamer with a shovel in her hands. She didn't have to do this. It would have been less political risk if she had not done it. She could just sit there and, as we'd say in my neighborhood, chill, play it safe. She can't say this, but I will. Even God doesn't like mediocrity. The Bible suggests be hot or be cold. But if you're lukewarm, I'll spat you out. Translation, even God doesn't like mediocrity. This is not a time for lukewarm. This is a time for leaning in. People are hurting. And I commend what she's doing. I am very excited about what she's announced today. I'm going to take some time today I don't have after the speech and write a special story on what you're doing there and why I think is historically important, and try to get it out to the 2 million followers who follow my movement so that they can point a finger at what you guys are doing and what the city treasurer is doing in the great city of Chicago. Chicago is an American iconic city. We wouldn't have America without Chicago. Literally true. You've seen the best of days and you've seen some hurtful days. I think your best days are ahead of you, but you got to believe that's so. And everyone's got to reach one and teach one. That's why this coaching platform she's talking about here is so critically important. Is what we don't know that we don't know that's killing us, but we think we know. Is what we don't know that we don't know that's killing us, but we think we know. And that's why I'm glad Jason Schwab is there in Chicago. Jason is one of my leaders, and Jason has deep roots in that city and believes deeply, is my highest ranking leader in the Midwest, and he is all in on the empowerment for Chicago. We have something else we are going to announce today, and there's something else I hope we're going to announce in February. I can't say that yet as much as I want to, and that's going to blow your socks off when I come back in February. But today we announce that the 1 Million Black Business Initiative that we partner with, a $130 million partnership with Shopify, will be made available to the residents of Chicago. And this, we just calculated the value of this. It's about $20,000 of an in-kind grant to each business that signs up. And I can get into that if the details of what that means, if you want. I know we have limited time. I want to make sure I get to the topic here and Please, Melissa, when I get to 5 minutes before, please stop me. I want to make sure I don't go over my time. If there's any questions I want to ask, make sure I answer them. So somebody wave their hand and tell me to stop 5 minutes prior. But 1MBB is critically important. Why are Black people, and I'm talking to all people of Chicago, by the way, not just Black people, but when mainstream America has a headache, Black folks have pneumonia, even though we're all sick. Whatever is happening with white folks is typically twice or three times as painful for Black folks. And I'm gonna explain why in a moment. And it's not emotional, and it's math. I love, as my friend Melody Hobson would say, she likes math because it doesn't have an opinion. I said that earlier. It's math. Here's the math. 41%, give or take, of all African Americans own a home, and compared to 60 or 70% of other groups. Out of 30 million businesses in America, which is the royalty of this country, business, Black folks own about 2.9 million of those businesses. Call it 9%. That sounds not so bad. It's actually pretty bad, even though that's below the average of our population percentage in this country. It's really bad because 96% of those businesses don't have an employee. Let that sink in. So almost 3 million Black businesses, 41% were sidelined during COVID, by the way, said to be non-operational. But let's give it credit for all 2.9 million for the moment. 96% of those businesses are self-employment projects. They don't have an employee. You cannot build wealth without compounding. One of the basic ways to compound in a business, to leverage yourself, is with employees. So if it's just you doing one contract, when the contract ends or you get sick, the business stops. And you cannot pass down generational wealth because you haven't built any. So, and there's no books and records. There's no infrastructure. That's why we couldn't get the PPP. There's no accounting records. There's no banking relationship. And the bank teller down the street don't count, okay? You need a private banking relationship. So 1MBB is gonna wrap all this around your Chicago businesses. We're gonna give you a Hope Business in the Box training. We're gonna give you small business entrepreneurship training. We're gonna give you 700 credit score communities training. Some of this in the city treasurer's office. We're gonna certify you. We're raising credit scores 54 points in 6 months, 120 points in 24 months. Nothing changes your life more than God or love than moving your credit score 120 points. We're gonna then put you into a Shopify experience and give you a Shopify license free. Shopify domain name through Shopify, your own domain name, free. Your own website, free. Your own payment systems, free. Your own fulfillment systems, free. Your own delivery systems, free. I mean, I want you to absorb what I'm saying to you here. This is unbelievable. Delivery system. When you make your first sale, you get your credit line against that sale. Has nothing to do with your credit score. Has nothing to do with your asset class. Whether you own a home, whether you have a business, it's based on your ability to make a sale. When does that happen to you before? And then when you're beginning to thrive, we're gonna give you 2 hours for an accountant, so you have proper books and records. 2 hours from an attorney, so you're structured properly. 2 hours with an insurance representative. 2 hours with a banker, so they can help you structure how to go about getting access to capital on the front end, so your business is not ready, fire, aim when you show up to the bank branch. We're gonna wrap on a business management team around you so that you are good to go and you can build a business that's really a business and not busyness. That package is $20,000, give or take, each. And if we do 1 million businesses over 10 years, that's a third of all businesses we have today, but these have the chance of being real businesses, and somewhere in there is an outlier. Somewhere in the south side of Chicago is a Black Steve Jobs. Somewhere in the south side of Chicago is another Melody Hobson. Somewhere in the south side of Chicago, there's another Bill Gates. Somewhere in the south side of Chicago is, you see what I'm saying? There are brilliant, what do you think a drug dealer is? Yes, it's immoral. Yes, it's unethical. Yes, it's a special place in hell reserved for somebody who sells consciously death to their own community. I'm not endorsing it, but what they're not is dumb. They understand import, export, finance, marketing, wholesale, retail, customer service, security, territory, logistics. These are not dumb people. These are brilliant people with a bad business plan and bad role models. Wrong soil, right vision. And people are going to use their talent somewhere for something. How did we get here? That was Dr. King's last book. Where do we go from here? And how did we get here? Let me spend a couple moments explaining how we got here. As they say in my neighborhood, explaining. 400 years ago, circa 1619, we know the story that the first 20 indentured servants came on the shores of Jamestown, Virginia. And they were a mixture of Black indentured servants and whites. That's right, poor whites from Europe. And those Blacks and whites ran off together because they didn't like how they were treated. But when they were captured, the overseer said, no, we can't, I want you to listen to this now. We got to stop arguing over stupid stuff in Chicago. They said, wait a minute, these Blacks and white folks are getting along. That's a problem. So they took them to trial. And they gave the whites 2 years of additional servitude to work off their penalty. They gave the Blacks life, same crime. That became slavery, life. And they told the whites, the poor whites, you're just like us. You're white just like us, not you're rich like us. Couldn't say that. They said, you're white like us. Why is this important? The word white did not exist anywhere in the world before 1640. We've had people in North America for 15 million years. We've had people speaking a language for 50 million years. We've been around as human beings for 200 million years. The world is 5 billion years old, and you've had life on the planet for 4 billion years. But the word white didn't exist anywhere in the world except a little over 350 years ago.
Could you try again?
Even Siri's got an opinion. So that was Siri, you didn't hear her. And so my point is that we've made up these problems. We've made up our challenges. The issue is rich and poor, not Black and white. And so Black folks came here not as stupid people. We were geniuses. They brought us from 6,000, 9,000 miles away from Africa because we were geniuses of the land. And they came us here to work that soil. And we couldn't create wealth for ourselves for two reasons. One, the harder we work, the bigger the man in the big house, his house got, because our wealth, our income went to him. And we couldn't create capital because we were capital. Literally bought, traded, sold, insured. Again, this is not a guilt trip. I'm not even having a racial conversation. This is math. This is our history. This is how we got here. This is why Black folks have less than 10% of the net worth of their white counterparts. And I've already talked about the fact that today, 41% of us own a home, and most of us who own a business have a self-employment project. So how do you build wealth? Because we never got the memo on how free enterprise, capitalism, economics, and ownership works. We're not dumb and we're not stupid. It's what we don't know that we don't know that's killing us, but we think we know. Look at where the rules are. I'm really frustrating the person doing the sign language. She's trying to keep up with me. Okay, all right, God bless her. So I'm sorry, I'm just passionate. So look, if you're mainstream watching this broadcast today, you got the memo attached to your baby bib. You're listening to mom and dad talk about stocks and bonds, investments at 3 years, 4 years old. You're watching daddy buy a home, mom buy a home. You're watching them make financial moves. It was not a class on financial literacy. It was the way you lived your life. You got the memo on your baby bib. When did Black folks and brown folks get that? We were denied it. So now you go all the way to 1865. And I'm coming out to the crescendo here, why I think you should be optimistic. You get to 1865, there's the end of the Civil War. Happened here in Atlanta, City Treasurer, because this was the March to the Sea. This was a battle, the last battle that broke the spirit of the Confederates when they burned Atlanta to the ground and marched all the way to the ocean to make the case that this is over. And in Savannah, Georgia, 2 hours from here, Secretary of War Stanton and General Sherman met with 20 former slaves, ministers. What do you want? Do you want a welfare program? No. Do you want a handout? No. What do you want? We want land. We want to do for ourselves. Whew. You might remember the story of 40 Acres and a Mule. That was not 4 million slaves. That was 18,000 people families who fought in the Union War along the Eastern Coast. It was a pilot project, we call it. And those 18,000 families who got 40 acres, most of that land got reverted because Lincoln was killed right after that. And they worked, by the way, that was not good land. It was on the beach. It was oceanfront property. We love it today. Both me and the city treasurer would love to have a beachfront house today. But back then, you put your seeds in the sand, your crop would end up in Jamaica tomorrow. The waves come in, the waves go out. But we didn't complain about it. We worked that land hard. They said, my God, they're so industrious, give them a mule. That's like saying give somebody a tractor in the rural parts of your state. It was a compliment. So first came the land, January 1865. Then came the mule, February 1865. Then Abraham Lincoln signs the Freedmen's Bureau Act, creating Black schools, Black hospitals, Black institutions, and a Black bank. It was called the Freedmen's Bank. 1865 March, chartered to teach freed slaves about money, financial literacy. That's exactly what she just talked about in her announcement, and exactly what you're about today. But then Lincoln was killed in April 1865. And with that, the whole thing fell apart. I don't know if you know Frederick Douglass, if you're a historian, but you know him probably as an abolitionist. He was a businessman. He owned real estate in Baltimore, Maryland. I heard the city treasurer get a little excited. She talked about my real estate company that I own. It just so happens I'm in the same business that Frederick Douglass was in. He owned $6 million worth of real estate in Baltimore, Maryland, and he rented it out to working class Blacks at affordable rates. That gave him the financial freedom to go become a, civil rights leader. That's where it came from. We don't have time for this story, but if you do the research on Dr. King's family and a lot of those civil rights leaders, most of them, they were middle class. Why? Because their family had created wealth or at least prosperity that'll give them financial freedom to go try to fight for your rights. Or to quote my friend Shimon Peres, God rest his soul, he told me, John, even if you want to distribute money like a socialist, you got to first collect it like a capitalist. To quote Andrew Young again, to live in a system of free enterprise and not to understand the rules of free enterprise must be the very definition of slavery. So we recently, January 2016, actually, we became the first organization ever to cause the renaming of a building on the White House campus. We got the Treasury Department to rename the Treasury Annex building the Freedmen's Bank building in honor of those former slaves that put every dime they had in that bank. And it would have been one of the top 100 banks in America today had it survived, had it not been manipulated. But we never got the memo on money. That bank failed, and we didn't talk about money for another 100 years until Dr. King came to Chicago and gave his life in Memphis. We're sitting in a moment in history, but history does not feel historic when you're sitting in it. It just feels like another day. But that doesn't mean this moment is not historic. And let me tell you something else. City Treasurer, you're going to be maligned. You're going to be attacked. You're going to be undermined. You're going to be underappreciated. No good deed shall go unpunished, but keep on moving. Dr. King traveled 6 million miles, 2,600 speeches, 13 years, gave the I Have a Dream speech 100 times before the March on Washington. He gave the speech so many times, he wondered whether it was worth his time. That's why when he was giving the speech on the mall, Mahalia Jackson said, tell him about the dream, Martin. Translation, we are tired of hearing the same old raggedy speech. Can you please riff a little bit? And it's that riff that he went off and he did something unique. That's the part. Black girls and black children and white children, Jews and Gentiles. When he rapped, as we say today, that's the piece that got everybody all riled up, but he never gave up. And that's what got him to that point. I want you to never give up. I want you to feel encouraged. I want you to know you're on the right side of history. So where are we at right now? I think the last movement was about race and the color line, civil rights. And it was waged and won in the streets. I think the next movement is about civil rights, class and poverty, economics, ownership, and opportunity. It's going to be waged and won in the suites. The color's green now, not black or white, not red or blue. It's green, and we all need some more of it. We're living now in what I'm now calling the third Reconstruction. How am I doing on time? Am I at the 5-minute mark yet?
22 minutes left, John.
What is it?
22 minutes left.
You don't want to hear me talking for 22 minutes. So we are in a moment of Reconstruction. In my opinion, this is the third Reconstruction. The first Reconstruction came after the Civil War. It lasted from give or take 1865 to about 1874. The second Reconstruction, and that was about, we were in a surviving mindset. I just wrote this new book up from nothing. I talk about 3 mindsets: a surviving mindset, and that's who's going to attack you, City Treasurer, a surviving mindset, people who are experts in what they're against, not what they're for. And then you got the thriving mindset. They're going to love you. Those are taxpayers. Those are voters. Those are stakeholders. Those who want to see things better, who know we're all in this thing together, who know you can take no pleasure in the fact that there's a hole in my end of our boat. The thriving mindset is the middle class. It's a getting class. Get a way of life. Get access to a club. Get access to a fraternity, a sorority. Get a middle class job. Get a new business. Get cash flow. It's a getting. Get the American dream. It's a getting business. And then you got the winning mindset. You need at least 10% of these in Chicago, because winners are builders. Winners are builders. Your city treasurer is a builder. When you got too many of the surviving mindset, the country tilts in the wrong direction. We're at an inflection point right now in this country. We were there in 1865 too, because we've got too many people with a high school education or less, too many people who have never been out of their city or their state or their country, who haven't been exposed to anybody who doesn't look like them, who define their success or prosperity based on what somebody else has versus what they're doing. And that surviving mindset is not rooted into success. We had that in 1865, Blacks mostly struggling with this. But then we had this surge moment, and for a glimmer, there was more progress in 1 year than had been made in 100 years. And then Lincoln was killed, assassinated. By the same family, by the way, the Booth family, who his brother had saved his child's life years before. Can't make this up. Then you've got the second Reconstruction. That was 1965, really 1958 to about 1970. And ended with the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in 1968. And that was about access. That was the thriving period. That was about access to buildings and infrastructure and systems, access to public service. The city treasurer would not have been able to exist as a aspirational entity in 1960 because she was a woman, because she was Black, you name it. That's why I think Dr. King would be so proud today. And now you're in the third Reconstruction, which I believe is going to be between the year 2020 and the year 2030. Now, and that's going to be about social justice through an economic lens. Social justice through access to capital, access to credit, access to economic opportunity for all, at scale. You're living in a moment in history. Now, somebody watching this and listening to what I just said should have seen something wrong with the numbers. There was something wrong with the numbers. And because I've got a few more minutes, I'm going to unpack it. Are we going to have time for Q&A here, or is that, do I basically speak and drop the mic and leave the stage? Jason?
That is the call of you and the treasurer. But I'd say let's go ahead and wrap it up in 10 minutes and leave 8 minutes for Q&A.
I'm going to wrap it up in 5 minutes, and you can do as much Q&A as you like, because I do see some people in the chat. Let me back up now. Every 100 years or so, America has a colonic. '1765 to 1775, or want to be more, or 17. Want to be more specific. 1768 to 1780. What was that period? The birth of America, our independence from Britain, from tyranny. Then what happened 100 years later? The Civil War. Really redefining who we are as a nation, an enslaving nation, or a nation about freedom. 1858, circa 1870, give or take. Then you had, can't make this up, 100 years later, another colonic, 1958 to 1968, 1970. This is about freedom. So the numbers are wrong. John, this shouldn't happen into what, 2068? You should not have another colonic. The problem is that we've kicked this can down the road as long as we can. We've overstretched the rubber band. America's on reset. We have had a 2020 for the record books. Think about this now. In 3 or 4 months' time, you had the worst health pandemic in 120 years, a global economic crisis that rivaled the Great Depression for unemployment, a 400-year-old social justice reckoning on Black America. And everybody saw a public lynching on TV because everybody was home from the pandemic and from the economic recession. You wouldn't have seen, a good portion of Americans wouldn't have seen George Floyd being murdered on national TV had they not been convening at home and unemployed, or kids out of school. And the kids out of school piece is really important because you don't change society without young people. So now we're all watching this. People see the history books, they've seen lynchings before, but it's sort of not believable. It's like, oh, it's black and white, it's not a real photo, it's grainy. Did that really happen? People are still asking, did the Holocaust really happen? I mean, it's unfortunate, but 1 million deaths, it's been said, is a statistic. 1 death is a tragedy. You can relate to it. When they saw it, it broke our hearts. It was undeniable. And because it picked up on a mobile phone, not broadcast TV, the question that began, how many other times is this happening in this country? If somebody caught this on mobile phone by accident, you've got a whole reset of society and her values. You've got Black people, white people, rich people, poor people, Republicans, Democrats saying enough already. Knock it off. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. We cannot be against each other. As I said in this book, everybody wants to be an American, but Americans. So I think we've got a coming together moment. We got a chance to do it right all over again. Look, most of the GDP that's available to us is still left on the sidelines. The Citigroup report recently issued showed that just in the last 20 years, discrimination against Blacks alone, not Latinos, not Native American Indians, not poor whites, they're discriminated against too. By the way, the largest group dying in this country, the largest single group dying in this country are poor white men, dropping like flies. Yep, that's a fact. They've got problems too. We're not talking about all these other issues. My Asian brothers and sisters, all these groups. I'm talking about Black people, only enslaved people on American soil. Black people, in the last 20 years, Citigroup report said, City Treasurer, that discrimination alone cost America in GDP $16 trillion. Not billion, not million, $16 trillion. Lost home ownership, lost small business ownership, lost jobs, and lost tax base for cities tied to same. 16 trillion in 20 years. What do you think it is in 50 years, 100 years, 200 years, 300 years? This country's 450 years old, give or take. 300 years of that was enslaved. This is a levy, a tax on all of us. Racism is scientifically stupid. We're actually all the same people. 99.9% of all human DNA is precisely the same. Precisely. We argue over 1/4 of 1% of what differentiates us. Why are Black people Black? Because Africa's hot. because the sun is direct in Africa. And God knew what he was doing. He created pigmentation of skin that did not create skin cancer, that absorbed the heat rays. So when the sun hit the softest part of your body, which is over your brain didn't cook. It made the hair kinky so that it absorbed the heat rays and dispersed it before it cooked your brain. He made our nose wide in Africa so that it cooled the air before it went into your lungs, so that your lungs did not overheat. He made our nose, our mouth, our lips thick because, well, I don't know, but everybody wants them. And my white friends, why are white people white? Because Europe is cold. Because that pigmentation absorbs cold weather. I went to Norway to visit my friend, the Crown Prince, a few years ago. I got there in December. I'm freezing, got 3 jackets on, and a lady picked me up, talking about, we're going to go scuba diving tomorrow. Would you like to join us? No! Y'all cray-cray, y'all nuts. But this was natural for her. It was natural for her her skin, her temperature basis is different. Her nose is narrow to heat the air before it goes into her lungs. Her hair is stringy to cover her ears so that because you get cold in your ears, you're done. God knew exactly what he was doing when he made us. We're all family. Arguing over stupid stuff. 16 trillion in 20 years. And if we knock it off right now, stop racism, stop discrimination, pivot, put everybody to work, you'll have $5 trillion in more GDP from Black people alone in the next 5 years. And so we're making an economic argument for justice here. We're making a prosperity argument for justice here. And I just want everybody to know that what you're doing matters and who you are matters, and the role model that you are living and presenting matters. Watch how you live your life. It may be the only Bible anybody else reads. But here's something else. If you don't remember anything else, remember this. If you hang around 9 broke people, you'll be the 10th. I'm done.
Well, John, let's take our last 10 minutes here for Q&A. For any folks who have questions for John, please type it into the Q&A button, which is at the bottom of your screen. You'll see it right next to the chat over near the bottom and near the interpreter. Our first question comes from Rendell Solomon. He says, hello, John. Thank you for your comments and perspectives. Always great to hear you speak. While there is much we can do on our own, how do you balance those efforts with addressing the systemic issues, policy, bias, and racism that continue to deny us opportunity even when we do what we're supposed to do?
The beautiful part about this horrible virus is it equally affected my rich friends behind gates. Everybody's afraid of this thing. It affected everybody. It hit everybody. It stopped everything everywhere. And even my friends on Wall Street who've gotten this run up in investment, their investment portfolios, they know it's not sustainable. They absolutely know it. They're afraid of the cliff on the other side. So we have this, everybody now knows that we've got this disconnected economy. You got the real economy, and then you got the investor economy. And the ladder between the two is broken. And when in Europe, when the ladder was broken and the 1% literally owned 1% of all assets, that's when the palace gates got stormed. Nobody wants that narrative. Societies don't crater from the top down, they crater from the bottom in. And so I think everybody's got the memo now that we're all in this together. We've seen how important frontline workers are, not just frontline health workers, but frontline workers like people at Walmart and Target stores and grocery stores and delivery people. We've seen how that without them, we could not distance. We cannot live our lives right now. Policymakers have seen how fragile this economy is without you and me. 70% of this economy's GDP is consumer spending. States can't print money. Only the federal government can do that. And the federal government can't print enough money to solve this crisis when the economy stops. And they now know increasingly how fragile we are and how important small business is to this national debate. 58% of all jobs in this country come from businesses with 50 employees or less. These are stats, facts, and figures that were not obvious to anybody before 2020. And so I wrote something called a new Marshall Plan. You should search it, pull it down, read it. It's my vision for the reset for this country. The last administration expressed some interest in what I was doing. And I worked with the Treasury Department on some structural changes. I had a hand in creating parts of PPP, but they did not have the right spirit to execute it. And so I stood down. I've already gotten calls from the Biden transition team twice already. One was last night by people extremely high up who've asked me to write some things to help around the thought process for what they could do going into 2021 to increase capital to small business and flows into these underserved neighborhoods. I can't guarantee they'll take my ideas, but the fact that they reached out, I didn't call them, says something about what they're thinking about at a very high level. I've already been asked to be an informal advisor in this regard. I have high hopes that if there's gonna be systemic changes, it's going to happen now. Now, meaning the next few years.
Thank you, John. With our last 5 minutes here, I will put on the spot, Madam Treasurer, what would you like to ask John on behalf of our great city?
First of all, I was typing in different quotes that he said. I want to make certain I got this one quote right. So I want to repeat these statistics. Did you say discrimination in the last 20 years cost America $16 trillion in GDP?
16 trillion.
And did you say that if racism ended, we could have an additional, how many trillion in GDP from Black Americans?
5 trillion over 5 years, which would pay for the Coronavirus Care Act stimulus money that was put out. It would pay for that totally plus some.
And so you were talking about this partnership with our office and your organization. And certainly, as I mentioned, I'm just so excited about this because, John, as you know, in Chicago, we have 77 neighborhoods.
Yeah.
But we have certain neighborhoods, underserved communities that truly have not, when you say we don't know what we don't know, that have truly not been able to grab hold to these resources. And I think about an opportunity for free resources. John, I'll tell you, I jumped into several of the master classes today, and all I kept thinking about is, we're giving this information for free. And I can't imagine what it would cost residents to be able to get this information. This is a big deal. So my question to you is, how, it's behavior change too. Mm-hmm. How do we get residents to understand, number one, how big of a deal it is, especially residents in underserved communities that have been really trampled on for so long that they doubt a lot and may not necessarily grab hold to this? How do we stay encouraged from an organization standpoint? And how do we encourage more residents to really take hold to this when they have doubt?
Yeah. So part of what you need to do, you're already doing. I know this is going to sound really silly, but the way you're dressed right now, most women would go, wow, she looks good. In other words, you're not wearing some dark, dreary outfit. You're not looking all dowry and down. People want to be aspirational. I mean, when we try to stop smoking in this country, the federal government said, here's all statistics of why you shouldn't smoke. They put it on the back of the cigarette. This thing will kill you. I mean, it's on the back of the cigarette box. This will kill you. And people did not stop smoking. Mm-hmm. They stopped smoking when you start seeing commercials and movies of successful people who didn't smoke. It became a role modeling aspirationally. When they saw those who, again, there was a time where everybody who was successful, they smoked cigarettes. Mm-hmm. And then there was a complete movement to folks not smoking cigarettes who were successful, and no one wanted to be like the people who were failures, so they stopped smoking cigarettes. Culture is not the only thing in business, it's the only thing. Culture drives your neighborhood, your house, your environment, your block, your office. We model what we see. So we got to make, one of my biggest quotes yesterday on Twitter was that when I said that Quincy Jones says it takes 20 years to change a culture. In the past 20 years, we've made dumb sexy. We've dumbed down and celebrated it. And now we've got to make smart sexy again. By the way, Quincy's from Chicago. And we basically made dumb sexy in this country. And now, I mean, people used to walk around with suits and ties in the 30s, 40s, and the 50s, and the 60s. Now you see somebody with a suit and tie in a certain neighborhood, you think they're a Martian or a cop, right? And that this guy, people should, like, there's something wrong with that, right? And if somebody thought you were smart, they would rag on you. We now that's changing, that's flipping, right? Every rap star wants to be a billionaire. Every NFL player, I talked to 2 NFL players yesterday doing a seminar with them. They want to be Jeff Bezos. They want to be the business person. So I think you're seeing a shift here, and we got to make smart sexy. We got to bring in cultural icons from Chicago who live there, from there, get them to begin to message this, get them to do public service announcements and point to what you're doing. They'll do it for you. They'll do it for free. And we combine our infrastructure with their sexiness, their sex appeal, their cool factor. And Dr. King really had it right. Dr. King realized that half of success is marketing. Steve Jobs was not the best engineer in the Silicon Valley. He was actually pretty mediocre. Wozniak, his partner, was the genius on coding. He was a great marketer. So good was his marketing, Treasurer, that if you ask somebody who is the founder of Apple today, they say Steve Jobs, not Steve Jobs and Wozniak. He gets no credit. Malcolm X was a great marketer. Desmond Tutu, friend of mine. Mandela, Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Madam C.J. Walker, all of them great marketers. I don't agree. I violently disagree with our existing president's divisive nature. I must give him credit, though. He's a brilliant marketer. I have to give him credit. And he talks to people in 3 or 4 words, short sentences, and he talks like he's talking to a third grader. And that marketing prowess, we've got to master that. The last thing is that in this country, the urgent crowds out the important. So what we're talking about is really important, but it doesn't feel urgent, or it hasn't felt urgent. So you get to Washington, D.C. or City Hall or whatever, and you got all these important things in your portfolio, and the daily urgency of what's going on drains all the air out of the room, and you never get around to it. What Dr. King's brilliance was he made the important feel urgent. He got celebrities involved. He got the media involved. He was able to talk and communicate in a way that captivated you. He didn't march after 3 o'clock because he knew that the media had to get that reel of film on a plane in New York City to be processed for 5 o'clock news. It's marketing.
Well, we are at time here, and I would say if we can get just maybe a 30-second final thought from the treasurer and a 30-second final thought from Mr. Bryant, then we can move on to our masterclass and wrap up.
All I have to say is building hope today for tomorrow. This has been an awesome day. I knew that everyone would love John Hope Bryant. We couldn't be here all day and there will be enough time for him to answer all the questions and responses. Everyone has been so excited. I really have to commend the work of John Hope Bryant, founder, chairman, and CEO of Operation Hope, Chicago Treasurer's Office. I am so excited to be partnering with him and his organization to bring those resources to residents of Chicago. So more to come on this partnership. Please enjoy the rest of the afternoon. We have some more classes for you to be a part of, so make certain that you go to the platform. Jason or the others will give you more information on that. Thank you so much, John.
Thank you, City Treasurer. You are a role model for public service. And I want to thank Jason Schwab, our own in-house Santa Claus at Operation Hope. Some of you will get that, some of you won't. It's an inside joke we have at Operation Hope. He's doing a great job. And for you out there watching this, I want you to know this is your time. This is your time. I want you to be a dreamer with a shovel in your hands. I want you to understand that success is going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. I want you to take no for vitamins. I want you to never, ever, 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 ever give up because somebody's watching you. And if you give up, they might give up too. Let's go.